Hello, I'm sports handicapper Ian Cameron, and I am back with our regular MLB overnight betting line segment for the games taking place on Tuesday, May the 10th. We have several games that I have circled to talk about in this video for the Tuesday baseball card, and we're going to start by looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates and Cincinnati Reds. It's a series between NL Central rivals, and it's a series where, it wouldn't surprise me to see runs in bunches, because that is what we have seen from the Cincinnati Reds time and again throughout the course of the season. And look who's on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds. It's our old friend, our old punching bag, our old kick plate, I guess you could say, Alfredo Simon. Boy, we love taking advantage of this guy when he's on the mound. He's just been absolutely horrendous this season long. But before we handicap this game any further, I do want to stop for a second and give a little clap here for Alfredo Simon. Bravo, Alfredo. You actually pitched a halfway decent game last time out against the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, 7.2 innings, 3 runs allowed on 7 hits in that last start against Milwaukee. Yes, it was an improvement from his previous outing, from all of his previous starts this season, but hold on now. Let's pump the brakes for a second here. That was his one good start that we have seen from Alfredo Simon so far this season. I am not at all ready yet to proclaim that this guy is back on track by any stretch of the imagination. For the season, he's still got a 9.86 ERA. Even after that outing, his ERA is still outrageously high. He's allowed 6 home runs in 21 innings, 25 runs on 35 hits in those 21 innings of work. And yeah, he was better last time out against Milwaukee, but I am not ready to just say all of a sudden that with one good start, one halfway decent start, that Alfredo Simon is back on track, because his numbers still very, very scary. Walk rate of almost 5 walks per 9 innings. That's definitely not good. His control issues are still not great. He's given up 28.6% of all fly balls or home runs that have been hit against him. And an interesting stat too that I've noticed with Alfredo Simon is WAR. Wins above replacement. WAR is a stat that basically measures a player's contribution to a team's success, and how much does that player impact this team's ability to win. And for Alfredo Simon, when it comes to that WAR statistic, it's sitting at minus. That's right, minus 0.3. I mean, it's a negative number for Alfredo Simon with his WAR statistics. So as far as it's concerned, Alfredo Simon is hurting the Cincinnati Reds team, not helping them, and the WAR statistic basically proves it. So when it comes to WAR for Alfredo Simon, what is he good for? Absolutely nothing. Basically, with that WAR statistic, I mean, he's really not delivering for the Cincinnati Reds, and they are not winning games for the most part with him on the mound. And yeah, while he was a little bit better last time out, when you have a pitcher that has struggled just as badly as Alfredo Simon has all season long, 1-4 is Cincinnati in his 5 starts this season, and he has that one good start finally, you gotta just, not jump to conclusions that all of a sudden he's back on track, because I think that is still very premature when it comes to Alfredo Simon here. And he'll be facing Pittsburgh here for the 3rd time already this season. He faced Pittsburgh back on April 8th. He allowed 2 runs on 5 hits and 5 innings of that start. And then the next start, April 30th at Pittsburgh, 3 runs allowed on 6 hits and only lasted 4 innings, and had to use up 98 pitches just to struggle his way through those 4 innings. So Pittsburgh progressively, with each performance that they've had at the plate against Simon, they've had better looks, better approaches, and better results. Now they're going to get to see a mediocre pitcher like him for the 3rd time in barely a month. So I think this could be another disaster outing for Alfredo Simon. He's still in the bet against category, and I'm willing to do so once again here, and think that the Pittsburgh Pirates can definitely score their share of runs in this game. Juan Nicasio will start for Pittsburgh, and we've talked about him in previous videos here on the Overnight Line segment. He's a guy that's been very good at home, but he's been very, very suspect on the road. A 6.75 ERA for Nicasio away from PNC Park, 6 runs allowed on 9 hits in just 8 innings, more walks than strikeouts on the road, which is another concern. Has also allowed allowed 2 home runs in those 8 road innings pitched, so it's been a little bit of more of a struggle for Juan Nicasio pitching away from home, and Great American Ballpark could be a little bit of a tricky spot for him to pitch. Now, the one conundrum is this is probably not a great ballpark for him, but he did pitch very well against Cincinnati just a couple of weeks ago on April 29th. That was in Pittsburgh, though. However, he did pitch well, 3-hit shutout baseball in 7 innings for Nicasio against Cincinnati. But it's going to be a little bit trickier now, facing the Reds for a second time in a much tougher ballpark to pitch in than PNC Park. So still think Cincinnati, an offense that's been a lot better in recent games, can score their share of runs too. Obviously, you have to give the late game edge in this game to Pittsburgh with their bullpen. Pittsburgh's bullpen, it's a middle-of-the-pack bullpen. It's not great by any stretch, but it's still better than Cincinnati's, which is still ranked dead last in Major League Baseball. Pittsburgh should have the edge in this game. I'm willing to go side and total in this game. I'd look to bet Pittsburgh at the short price, minus 120 is a road favorite, and also look over the total. Once again, these overs keep cashing in Cincinnati. They did again on Sunday, and I expect this will probably be another high-scoring game between the Pirates and Reds here. So getting over that total of 9 runs, something that I definitely could see happening between these two teams. Another matchup taking place Tuesday, May 10th, Toronto, San Francisco, second game of an interleague series between these two teams. And I think Toronto has just got the luck of the draw on their side in this series because they get to face Jake Peavy on Monday, and I expect Jake Peavy to get hit in that game by the Blue Jays lineup. And you talk about the guy that's the next worst starter on the San Francisco rotation behind Jake Peavy, it's got to be Matt Cain. I mean, Matt Cain has been absolutely disastrous in the early going this season for the San Francisco Giants. You look at his last 2 starts for Matt Cain, and he's allowed 14 runs on 17 hits and just 10 innings of work over those last 2 starts against the New York Mets and Colorado. And you would think with Cain being a lifelong member of the Giants and pitching at AT&T Park that at least in his home ballpark he'd pitch a little bit better, but that hasn't been the case either. He has a 6.64 ERA in 4 starts here in San Francisco this season. San Francisco's just not winning either with Matt Cain on the mound. They're 1-3 in his 4 home starts. They're just 1-5 in Matt Cain's 6 starts overall this season. So San Francisco's not winning games with Cain pitching. He's allowed 5 home runs as well in his last 3 starts. And boy, I can't think of a worse team to be facing if you're Matt Cain when you're struggling with giving up home runs than facing the Toronto Blue Jays. A big power-laden, potent lineup with power bats, with home run hitters up and down this lineup. That could be a bad combo for Matt Cain in this start. And J.A. Happ is going to get the start for Toronto on the other side, and he's been just Mr. Consistent here for the Toronto Blue Jays, and a major surprise because a lot of people thought he would struggle in Toronto, especially pitching at the Rogers Center, a fly ball guy that has had some troubles in the past with home runs, but his numbers, very solid so far. He's allowed 3 runs or less in each of his 6 starts. He's worked at least 6 innings in all of those outings, so he's keeping the bullpen relatively fresh because he's able to pitch deeper into games. His road numbers have been good at 2.75 ERA. He's allowed just 6 runs in 19.2 innings pitched away from home. I mean, right now, in terms of current form, J.A. Happ is the polar opposite of Matt Cain right now, and you get a pretty reasonable price here again with the Toronto Blue Jays. They're laying a cheap price around minus 117 to minus 120 is the current range that you can find Toronto in this game as a road favorite. I'd look to back Toronto in this game. I'd also look to back over the total in this game. 8 runs, total of 8 currently between the Jays and Giants, and I do think, again, Happ can outpitch Cain. Jays do still have some question marks, though, with their bullpen. It's capable of giving up runs late. So I like Toronto to win a higher scoring game. So sidewise, I'll lean to the Blue Jays there and over the total as well, with that total sitting at 8 runs. Let's do a few quick hitters in terms of some of the other games on the Tuesday slate. We've got White Sox taking on the Texas Rangers, Carlos Rodon taking on Derek Holland. Derek Holland had a real rough outing last time against the Toronto Blue Jays, rather. Got absolutely shellacked in that outing. We'll see if he can bounce back here against the White Sox, because previously, prior to that start, Holland was pitching pretty well. Rodon is a very, very inconsistent guy, very tricky to trust. He can look good at times, and then there's other times where he definitely tends to struggle. So that's a tough game from my standpoint, but probably would still lean a little bit to Texas and Holland. Maybe a little bit of a buy low situation here with Derek Holland to bounce back after a rare poor outing in his last start against the Toronto Blue Jays. And then another interesting game on the slate, St. Louis taking on the LA Angels. Boy, there haven't been many spots that I've been looking to bet the LA Angels this season, particularly as a favorite. I've just not been a big fan of this team. Very light hitting team. They've got question marks in their starting rotation, question marks with their spotty bullpen. All that being said, I've been going against Mike Leake on a number of occasions this season, and he's still a guy that I have a very difficult time trusting, especially now he goes on the road in this particular matchup against an American League team. And again, usually American League lineups a little bit better, maybe top to bottom, than the National League. But still, I think Mike Leake to me is a guy that's got a lot to prove. 6.35 ERA for Leake in his last 3 starts. He's allowed 12 runs on 16 hits in his last 17 innings. 5 home runs is allowed as well in Mike Leake's last 3 starts. And on the flip side, you've got Hector Santiago pitching for the LA Angels. He's been solid, Santiago. A 3 ERA, 2-0 are the LA Angels in his 2 home starts this season. So he's pitched pretty decently for this team, giving them a chance to win. A little bit of a concern that he threw 116 pitches in his last start against Milwaukee. That's his highest pitch count of the season. That could be a little bit of a troublesome thing for him in this next outing here against the St. Louis Cardinals. That being said, I'll still lean to the LA Angels as a small home favorite here, and also lean over the total. Again, Mike Leake, to me, when you got guys like Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, you still have guys in the Angels lineup that can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and Leake having trouble keeping the ball in the park, especially in his last 3 starts. So I would expect the Angels to be able to score some runs. Still think Santiago can outpitch Leake. It's a question of whether that Angels bullpen can hold the fort in the latter innings. That's kind of why I like the over as well, just in case St. Louis is able to make some things happen against what's been a very erratic Angels bullpen so far this season. So I'll lean to the Angels and lean over the total in that game. And that's going to do it for me taking a look at the MLB overnight betting lines for the games taking place on Tuesday, May the 10th. I'm sports handicapper Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. As always, check out the website at sportsbookreview.com. All kinds of great betting information. It's an incredible resource to help you pile up the profits in terms of articles, videos, live odds. It's got everything you need as a serious sports bettor. So check that out at sportsbookreview.com. Until next time, we'll be back tomorrow to take a look at the overnight lines for Wednesday's slate. Until then, I'm sports handicapper Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy the games and good luck.